Go way on the left! Under the harness! Hey, hop! Go way of it! Lift them! Hey, hop! On the high load!
In the early hours of May the 7th, 1969, the overnight express from London to Aberdeen crashed at Morpeth, north of Newcastle. Six people were killed and over 100 were injured. Later that day, a local doctor said,
I was wakened up this morning, as far as I know, about 20 to 2, something of that sort, by my partner, who said that he had, there had been a rail crash outside his house. So, of course, I went, and it brought me back to the crash that I was involved in Cramlington. And I thought, there, for the grace of God, go I. It was an astonishing coincidence, really, because it is almost to the day that the crash occurred, only a very few miles south of Morpeth in 1926 at Cramlington.
And Dr. Blakelock was actually travelling on the train that crashed in 1926. Its derailment was an act of sabotage during the general strike. The general strike that nearly brought the country to a standstill. Blacklegs and volunteers were used to keep essential services running, and it was to try and stop them that desperate Northumbrian coal miners, already on strike for months, removed a length of rail on the main line near Cramlington and caused the crash. Fortunately for the train wreckers, all the passengers escaped from the crash without serious injury. The government had called on volunteers to help keep the trains running. Two of the volunteer guards on the train that crashed at Cramlington were Edinburgh University students, now Dr. Snowden Blakelock and Dr. Hope Poole.
The Dean of the College of Medicine said that students would be excused lectures provided they did some useful work for the essential services. So the days we put in on useful work, or whether it was on the trams or the railway or driving buses, counted as lectures.
There was a call went out for help, and we just went to do it. We young people who enjoyed it, and I don't think I considered altogether the implications as to what the strike was about, but it was our job to help out, and we did it.
In my day, I don't think students had any political thoughts. They weren't militant, they just did their duty for the college or for the country, I think. Politics was never mentioned.
On the 7th day of the general strike, an express had left Edinburgh with a strike-breaking crew which included the two medical students as volunteer guards.
Just south of Morpeth, there were some platelayers, volunteer platelayers on the line, and we slowed down to pick them up. They had been, as they described it, they'd been chased away. What exactly happened we didn't quite know, but we picked them up, and then we're just starting going again at quite a slow speed till we got to where to near Cramlington, where the crash occurred.
For removing the rail and causing the crash, 8 miners went to prison. Living today within a mile of the spot where it happened are the 4 of them who are still alive. William Muckle, who lives a few feet from the line, got 4 years. Arthur Wilson, 8 years. Tommy Roberts, 8 years. And Robert Harbottle, also 8 years. The miners were on strike because the mine owners wanted to cut their meagre pay by 40%.
Well, the living wage, that was the thing. They wanted a 40% reduction on what we were getting. Well, 40% reduction on 25 shilling, reckon it up.
William Muckle was 22. He and the others went to a union meeting on the morning of the crash.
Well, it's 43 years ago, you know. And I can remember being at the union meeting that morning. And I couldn't say the man's name now, but he said, stop everything on wheels.
And he said, we've got to stop everything on wheels.
Stop everything on wheels.
LNER Services, company now aiming at 2,000 trains a day. Like normal times, busy scenes at Newcastle Central Station.
If you couldn't stop them at the station, stop them between the stations.
Then after dinner, these lads from the other end of the colliery, they came up, and we went up the old railway, and we got about halfway up, and here's these volunteer plate layers. There was about 7 on them. They had the +4s on, them +4s was for the grades then. So we went after them and chased them, and we got on the bridge, and we chased them with stones while they ran away.
The plate layers went through the bridge on towards the station, Cramlington station. And they started then to pull the rail up. And as they were knocking the chocks out, I was throwing them into the pond. Well, we had been on only 10 minutes. And that was a record for the pulling the rail up. And the train was coming. So there was a lad standing on the bridge. That's, I would say, about 250 yards away, waving a red and white handkerchief. But they took no notice of it. Prior to that, was a man that went through the bridge and right onto Cramlington station, and he warned them. He said, they're taking a rail up, but they still didn't stop. So here's a train coming, which we thought was a goods train, but it wasn't. It was a Flying Scotsman. And it was only at crawling pace. I could walk faster than what it was going. And then it come towards this signal box, and it just keeled over on the side just like a baby.
We were young at the time, we didn't care, you know. And we just ran off the railway and we stood behind this bush, and we just watched it, and it just kept like this, and then the first two carriages went telescoped.
And they're all very much relieved there was nobody hurt, because they didn't take the rail up with that intention, you know. Of course, when you're young, you do silly things, you know, but there was nobody hurt.
Just the one.
Was there?
One man was hurt, got his foot crossed or something.
Of course, it was going very slow at the time, wasn't it?
Why, the court, it was supposed to be going 40, but I kind of see where it could be doing 40, and it was just pulled up here, and where the crash happened was only about maybe 3/4 of a mile away. It couldn't gather steam up to be going 40, I would think. I thought maybe somewhere about 20. I watched it tip. I was the last one left behind the bush. There was about 7 or 8 were behind this bush. The bush, you know, in the field, and when it started, where the other lads must have run away. When I turned around, I was there myself. Mind, I went away now. Aye.
Past my father coming up, he says, "You've done it this time," which we had.
Well, you hadn't time to think what it was like. You just heard an awful crash and a shudder in the train. I was in the middle guard's van with Duncan Livingston, and there was this terrible shuddering, and we looked out to see what it was, and here was the engine over the embankment.
And then, when the noise was finished, a complete silence. Then I got out, and the sort of things I can remember were seeing the crabs in the van, crabs wandering about in milk. There's some milk churns as well.
Of course, the lobsters came out of their creels and were floating and swaying about in milk.
And then I went to see if there was anybody hurt. There was nobody hurt, except one man, and I think his luggage had fallen off the roof, caught him on the foot, and of course everybody thought he was badly hurt. They all gave him whiskey, brandy and all the lot. And by the time we got to the infirmary, of course, he was quite merry. Well, I think it was one of these foolish things that they did without really thinking of what was likely to happen. I wonder sometimes if they really thought that they were going to derail the train, because the rail wasn't removed, the rail was left in place. You couldn't see, or the driver wouldn't be able to see, because the plates, the wooden chocks and the plates were removed, but the rail was left there.
No, it was just lying at the side. It was lying about a foot out of its position. He would say there was something wrong, surely.
And I think it was simply that they didn't realise just what was going to happen.
Well, we thought they would have stopped it when they knew the rail was being pulled up. But they didn't, they just kept on coming.
Train smash malicious, police taking action at Cramlington. But the village was to remain silent for 5 weeks.
The villagers were all very loyal to each other. They wouldn't say anything, to harm the lads, because they knew they had been driven to do that through desperation,
We were what they call slaves in them days, man. Next to slaves.
Well, I mean, they had nothing coming in, had they? They were desperate. In fact, it was supposed that after we were away, Churchill had threatened to turn the troops on them.
Dictatorship by a minority. Hooligan forces must be crushed. Lord Grey's speech. Is the strike revolutionary? Failure of blow at freedom, where communism cannot succeed. Clear out the Soviet agents.
They thought it was the communists, I think. And I was never a communist. Never. Never will be. I don't believe in it. I don't think it'll happen in this country like any revolution, but one time, it was getting nigh.
Bad. Terrible. Conditions were wicked. You had a strip off, you were there from breakfast time till dark. And when you come home, you just had to get in a little tin bath and wash yourself. And it's grand when it's 5, you were coming in. Take your turns. You had to wait till the weather getting heated up. Sometimes you just lay on the mat, just lay on the floor and went to sleep till it was your turn to get bathed. And when it come to pay weekend, you hadn't, maybe there was a shilling left. We were single lads too. It was for the married ones.
Anybody that had a family will say 3 little ones on 6 and 9 a day. Why, it was starvation. They weren't getting enough food.
We were only paid once a fortnight. I mean, you were a millionaire that fortnight. Then they had a scrimp and save for the next weekend. had some hard work to do. They were tired, man. Family of 9 and 10. Hard times then, man. They were very hard. You needn't worry about anybody taking anything out your houses or nothing at that time. Every neighbour went into each house. Them that had gardens, well, they were all right. They had the leeks, onions, carrots and everything. They used to use their own veg. Well, it saved them a terrible lot of money. My father had hens where we used to get our own fresh eggs, so we took no harm. My father used to poach a bit. The rabbits were plentiful. He kept the soup kitchens going during the strike, my father did.
But the general strike failed. The miners who still had jobs now worked for drastically reduced pay. In Cramlington village, the police finally persuaded some of the 40 suspects who had been at the scene of the crash to give evidence against their mates. The first man to crack became the key witness.
He had the wind up, I think, and he had a brother in the police force. And then he had an uncle, a superintendent, where they must have advised him. Eh? So he told King's evidence. And the same man did as much as I did.
Well, it happened on May the 10th, and we got arrested on June the 6th. 1 o'clock in the morning, they came to my house. Collected us all about night time.
When I got in the witness box, he says, what was the idea? I said, it was just devilment. He says, devilment? He says, it must have cost a lot of lives. Well, I said, I can't help them things. It's a general strike, this.
Oh, it was a serious experience, the trial. When your mate gets up in the witness box and swears your life away.
I mean, we all had played together, worked together.
Good God, your own mates. Terrible.
There was 6 on them, I think.
Somebody had to be sentenced for the job, and that's really we were unlucky. That's what I say.
In fact, I think everything was settled after the first 2 days of the trial, what we had to get the sentences. I think that it was all just as right. He got an envelope at the trial, and I think it was in there what he had to do.
And he come to the ringleaders, he said, we were the ringleaders. Like he said, I'll sentence you to a long time. I said, here it's coming. 8 years. Oh, this is not so bad.
It seemed a long time, my dear. It seemed a long time.
But of course, they made an example of us, mind. Definitely. Of course, there was a lot of people in jail, you know, doing 6 months and 3 months and that for what they did on the general strike. But we happened to get over the top.
Severe sentences on 8 miners. Penal servitude for 8, 6 and 4 years.
Several of us volunteer guards or assistant guards, and we were very upset because we discovered that one of our colleagues, who incidentally had been along in one of the other compartments, was a rather attractive American girl, and he was there and he was so shattered by it all that he managed to get out of the company a very nice holiday on the continent and a complete, so we were told, a complete new set of clothes. We were paid, but that's all we got out of it.
The 8 men were sent far from home to Maidstone jail, where they were to serve out their sentences.
We were like political prisoners. We were getting the same treatment as what Moros were getting. And people, it was incest. Their own daughters. And we were shoved in among all them. We should have been kept separate, I think.
In the first place, we got a visit every 6 months, which we wouldn't have had if it hadn't been the communists. They paid all expenses for their wives and relatives.
International Class 4 Prisoners' Aid. Why, the time we were in, they used to come and seek our mothers and wives, take them to London, and then come to Kent, to Maidstone, on a visit. At Christmas time, they used to send them a £3 hamper, food and such as that. And then they fit hard to get those fellas out. They were a good party towards the lads inside.
In fact, even the 8-year men only served 3.5 years. The new Labour government of 1929, more kindly disposed towards strikers, released them early.
The governor, he says, you're going home tomorrow. But he says under one condition. He says no demonstrations in London.
You see, they wanted us to move quietly, so the Communist Party couldn't get in touch with us, you see, and keep it quiet. If we had stayed in London, then the Communist Party would have been there for a few days, see, having demonstrations and that sort of thing.
Well, I knew the men had been sent to prison. I can't think that I thought very much about that. But then we heard when they came out, which was some years later, of course, and I suppose I'd be those many years older, and we heard that they had been met with the reception committee, the brass bands and all the rest of it, and I must admit I felt just a little bit narked about it, because I felt that after all this had been a dangerous thing that might have, as far as I was concerned, ended completely disastrously.
There was dances held and everything for it. No, don't. There was nobody ever refused to put anything in the hat to help out. I got £4.16, I think it was. A millionaire for a weekend.
They returned home to spend the rest of their lives alongside the very men who had betrayed them.
One Saturday night I came home and I said one of them tight in at the corner dunk. So I just opened my window when I was going past and teamed a bucket of water home, you see. And he never said anything there. And I spoiled his garden. He had a garden, I spoiled it.
As I said, I let the past go. I paid for it, and I think it was finished with. It was with me, anyway. It wasn't with Willie Muckle and them, man. They kept it up. But not with me, honestly, I didn't. It was over with, and I said the best left alone.
But they did the job the same as we did it. We got time. They should have time, but did a rotten, dirty trick in the Torn King's Evans, didn't they? They were looked down upon, you know, these fellas. There's not many people who would speak to them. I went to Compton Village Club one night. This other fella came down. He was one of the witnesses. He says, are you going to have a drink off my bill? I says, a drink off you? I says, I don't want any drink off you. I says, if I had any poison in my pocket, I says, I'll put in your beer now. And he started crying. Never seen him no more. He went out. He's dead now.
Oh, when the witnesses died, great celebrations. Arthur, send word up, come down, whiskey. Arthur used to provide the whiskey. He's got a bottle in now for the last one. He's waiting. He's a queer lad, Arthur.
And it was on a Saturday morning I went to the club, and I got the whiskies in, you see, in the club. What's doing this morning? I said, we're celebrating, man, we're celebrating this morning. What are we celebrating this morning? Celebrating the death, I says. Waffy's deed.
We've done our time, and we're here, and that's all we wanted. And we were respected by everybody. Doesn't matter where we went, we were respected by them. Because it took us a political crime, that's all. It wasn't a thing that we'd do again.
We had to do something similar to what we did do for let the people see it, what we were getting, and well, I used to say it, we were slaves. We were getting starvation wages.
But I think really that people were more content, they were happier. People were more content with the simple pleasures of life. They were happier. And I say you've got to live in the generation you're born in, you know, and you find your own pleasure. You make a lot of it yourself.
Oh yes, I've had a happy life. I've enjoyed my life.
I'll tell you where I think the happiness came in. It was a community, and everyone helped each other. Oh yes, it was a good life, man. I've had the greatest experience in the world. I don't think there's another man breathing has went through what I went through. I was in the army till I was 25. I was right on the northwest frontier in the worst place in India. Boiling hot, and then boiling cold, and cold at night. When I come home, I gets into the train wreck, comes out of prison. I was out 3 months. Gets married, has to get married. And then the child died. So a year after we got another one, Hid died. And 18 months after that we got another one and Hid died. I had 5, I lost 5 altogether. And in 1939, I lost a wife. So I stayed single till I was to 1941. And I married the girl I sweethearted her when I was 17. So I've still had a good life. And I'm always smiling. I don't care wherever I go, I always smile. That's what the governor of Durham said to me. He said he would take the smile off my face, but I haven't yet. It's still there. Nobody will ever take a smile on my face, because I take hardships as they come. I've been grueled indeed. And I don't think there's anybody had experience that I've had. And I'm still happy.